Welcome to my channel. Today, we're exploring Stellar Defiance, a sci-fi journey where humanity stands strong and defies the odds across the galaxy. Dive into epic starship battles, powerful tech, and the resilience that makes us unstoppable in a universe full of challenges. If you're ready for a thrill-packed adventure in deep space, hit subscribe, and let's get started. Humanity's journey through the stars had been driven by many things: the thirst for knowledge, the need for survival, and the deep-rooted desire to help others. It was this last instinct, the belief that no civilization, no species, and no individual was beyond redemption, that would eventually change the course of history for the galaxy. At the heart of this belief was humanity's unique concept of second chances, a powerful, almost radical idea forged through the fires of Earth's tumultuous past. On Earth, second chances were something that had been a constant. From the scars left by wars, plagues, and political revolutions, humanity had repeatedly demonstrated its resilience in overcoming even the most tragic mistakes. Earth's history was a series of opportunities for redemption, not just on a personal level, but on a global scale. Societies had fallen, only to be rebuilt from the ground up. Dictatorships had given way to democracies, oppressive regimes had been overthrown, and empires had crumbled into republics. Earth's trajectory, despite all the chaos, was one of progress through transformation. But while the planet had learned the power of starting anew, it was often through bloodshed, fear, and resistance that change occurred. When humanity first ventured into the galaxy, they found themselves face to face with civilizations far older and more technologically advanced than their own. The initial shock of encountering alien species beings whose forms and histories were entirely foreign to humanity was immense. Some species were welcoming, offering knowledge and assistance without hesitation. Others, however, viewed the humans with suspicion, often regarding their belief in second chances as foolishness. For many, their histories were written in blood, shaped by betrayal and cycles of vengeance. The notion that an entire society could evolve and begin again seemed naive and impractical. However, these species' skepticism would not deter humanity's mission. For human diplomats and negotiators, the message was clear: the galaxy had to change, and the change would begin with the idea that every being, every world, and every government deserved the chance to start again. It started slowly. The Zyrex, an insectoid species that had long been embroiled in internal strife, were the first to hear this message. Their society had been built on a militaristic caste system, where the strong ruled and the weak were subjugated. Their history was one of constant war, both with other species and with themselves. For centuries, they had known nothing but violence and conquest. Yet when human ambassadors, led by Lila Jansen, arrived in Zyrex space, they did not come bearing weapons or threats of dominance. Instead, they spoke of peace, of the possibility of reform. Lila's approach was not one of dictation, but of invitation. She extended a hand, offering the Zyrex a chance to explore another path, a path where they could rebuild their society based on peace and diplomacy. At first, the Zyrex rejected the notion outright. How could a species that had spent centuries warring against each other possibly embrace such a foreign idea? But the seeds of change had been planted. Over time, a faction within the Zyrex leadership began to question their path. They saw the possibilities for growth, for change, and for redemption that humanity was offering. The concept of second chances, once considered a foolish ideal, became a powerful force for reform. Slowly, the militaristic structure of Zyrex society began to transform. New leaders emerged, ones who believed in collaboration rather than domination. The caste system was restructured, and the focus shifted from warfare to education, technology, and cooperation. This shift was not immediate, and it was not without resistance, but it was undeniable. The Zyrex, once a race defined by endless conflict, began to experience the first glimmers of peace. This success did not go unnoticed. Other species began to watch the Zyrex closely, fascinated by the changes taking place within their society. The Drathel, an octopoid species whose insular society had been governed by a strict caste system, were the next to feel the pull of humanity's belief in second chances. The Drathul had long isolated themselves from the galactic community, viewing other species as inferior and unworthy of interaction. Their social hierarchy was rigid, with little room for mobility or change. Those born into the lower castes were condemned to a life of servitude, while the higher castes held absolute power. But when human ambassadors arrived, speaking of humanity's own journey from division to unity, the Drathul were forced to listen. It was not the human diplomats' words alone, but their very presence, their genuine belief in the power of second chances, that made the Drathul begin to question their own system. The Drathul were a proud species, and their culture was deeply tied to their caste system. Change would not come easily. But as human diplomats worked with Drathul philosophers and leaders, they slowly began to plant the idea that their rigid social structures were a barrier to growth, both individually and as a species. Human history was filled with examples of societies that had once been divided by class, race, or ethnicity, but that had reformed and grown stronger through greater equality and opportunity. The Drathul, once skeptical, began to open their minds to the possibilities of a different way. The result was a profound transformation. The caste system, though not entirely erased overnight, began to break down. Social mobility increased, and the Drathul embraced more democratic processes, allowing for a greater exchange of ideas and opportunities for their citizens. Once again, the power of second chances had proven transformative. Other species soon followed suit. The idea that a society could rebuild itself, not by erasing the past, but by learning from it, gained traction across the galaxy. Governments that had once been founded on principles of oppression began to open their doors to reform. The idea that a civilization could change and begin anew, regardless of how dark its past, spread like wildfire. Slowly, species began to develop new systems of governance, ones that emphasized forgiveness, rehabilitation, and the possibility for redemption. The galactic community, once a fragmented collection of distrustful empires, began to unite under the shared belief that second chances were not just possible, they were essential for growth. The most significant shift occurred when a new intergalactic body was formed, the League of Second Chances. The League was not an authoritarian force, but a council made up of representatives from the many species that had embraced the idea of reform. The League's purpose was to help guide species through the process of transformation, to provide assistance to those who sought redemption, and to offer a forum for collaboration and growth. It was a body that was grounded in the principles of empathy, cooperation, and understanding. It was not just a political alliance, but a philosophical one. The idea that every species, every individual, and every government could change and grow was now the foundation of galactic politics. For humanity, this was the ultimate triumph. Earth's greatest gift to the galaxy was not technology or resources, it was the idea of second chances. This belief had inspired profound change across countless civilizations, leading to an era of reform and cooperation that had once seemed impossible. No longer were civilizations trapped in cycles of violence and revenge. The past, with all its pain and mistakes, was no longer seen as an insurmountable barrier. Instead, it was a guide to how societies could evolve, improve, and create a better future. But this transformation was not without its challenges. There were still species, isolated from the rest of the galaxy or resistant to change, that clung to old ways of thinking. Some saw the rise of the League of Second Chances as a threat, fearing that their own power would be diminished. These holdouts would challenge the progress that had been made, but the League, with its message of forgiveness and hope, stood as a beacon of what was possible. Slowly, even the most resistant species began to reconsider their stance. Governments that had once been oppressive began to realize that lasting peace and prosperity could only come when all beings had the opportunity to thrive. The true success of humanity's message was that it wasn't just about reforming governments, it was about changing the hearts and minds of individuals across the galaxy. The idea of second chances was a deeply personal one. It encouraged individuals to look at their own lives, to see the possibility for growth even in the face of their own failures. Species that had once been divided by hatred began to reconcile, learning to see each other not as enemies but as potential allies. The very fabric of galactic society was being rewoven, thread by thread, as the belief in second chances took root. As the galaxy continued to evolve, the League of Second Chances grew in strength and influence. It became a guiding force, not only for governments but for every individual who believed that their actions, no matter how flawed, could be redeemed. The League became a place where species, each with their unique history and perspective, could come together and share their wisdom. It became a symbol of the future where every being, no matter their past, could work towards something better. Humanity, once a fledgling species struggling to survive on its own world, had become the architects of a new galactic order, one built on the ideals of forgiveness, empathy, and, above all, the belief that everyone deserved the chance to start anew. The belief in second chances, once confined to the people of Earth, had become the foundation of a new galaxy, a galaxy where redemption was always possible, and the future was always open to those who were willing to embrace it.